Well, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Nutrition with Elena, where today we're going to talk about some how-tos in the kitchen. So, Elena, I turn it over to you.
Hi, everyone. Great to see you today. Glad that the heat wave subsided a tiny bit. My animals are getting a little frustrated with the weather. Um, but today we're just going to do some kitchen tips and tricks. I'm going to do the slides first, and then we'll take time to go through the recipes and kind of talk about some different ideas and different things we can do to kind of just make things work smoother in the kitchen, make things move more quickly, make us not feel like we need a whole kitchen full of tools, maybe kind of showing you how to repurpose some tools that we might already have. So let's get started. I'm going to share my screen. Great. So we're going to just talk about some kind of different hacks that we can play around with. One is kind of an organization hack, and that's a food safety kind of term that is used in kind of production kitchens and stuff, and that's first in, first out. So when we're storing things in the freezer, the fridge, pantry, bring the items closest to expiring to the front. I'd like to say that I do this regularly, but I kind of don't. It is helpful if you do, though. All right, keeping herbs fresh. So we can store fresh herbs in a vase with water, like flowers. So this is some apple mint I got a couple weeks ago in my CSA. And I've just been storing it in water, and it actually will start rooting after a while. So it'll start sending out shoots. And then at that point, you could plant it if you wanted to. So that's a really nice tip. You can also keep those in the fridge if you want to keep them a little bit fresher. And changing the water every few days can be helpful. So keeping produce fresh. So this can be a little bit tricky sometimes. Like I know I do help with the CSA at my job, and a lot of people are like, how do I keep this fresh? Because they're getting things and it's going bad quickly. A lot of times the leafy greens will spoil a little bit more quickly if we're not paying enough attention to how we're storing it. So we can store greens in a sealed bag or container with a paper towel, and that'll help absorb excess moisture. So that's a nice fun trick for greens. For berries, definitely berry season now, right? So we can wash or rinse berries in a 1-to-3 ratio of vinegar and water. And then we can drain it, rinse it, and store it in a container with a paper towel. So that can be a really nice way to just kind of preserve them a little bit longer, make sure they're clean, all of those things. So 1-to-3 ratio might be like rinsing it with like a half cup vinegar to 1.5 cups of water. For nuts and seeds, we can store them in the freezer to extend their shelf life. This holds true for like whole seeds and then also like ground flax seeds. I tend to keep that in my fridge, and that helps it, again, just kind of extend that shelf life a little bit. Also, we can freeze pesto and other sauces in ice cube trays. So I wanted to show you the pesto that I made when I was doing our demo for this class. And just kind of, I'm going to pop them out, and I'm going to keep them just in a baggie. Obviously, you could use something a little bit more environmentally friendly as well, but this is what I had accessible right now. I'm just popping those out into a baggie, and then you can use your pesto throughout the year. Preserving that summer flavor as we get into colder months. We can also freeze fresh herbs with water or oil. So basically, if we're going to freeze it, so we're going to put our herbs in So like I have some mint leaves that I've washed. I'm gonna tear them up because they are pretty big. And then what we're gonna do is just put some water over top and we can freeze this. And when it freezes, you're gonna notice that it like shrinks down a little bit, obviously. So once that happens, you can then add a little bit more water to it and refreeze. So then you'll be able to pop that out and store it in a container or a bag when you have frozen fresh herbs, and you can use that throughout the winter months. So that can be a really good way to preserve fresh herbs because they're so abundant and delicious this time of year. I always get when I have to do kind of a recipe demo with basil, I'll get the basil in a bag. I don't know if anybody's done that from the grocery store. If you buy it already cut at the grocery store, it lasts like, maybe a couple days, and it's about the same price as buying the actual plant. So they have like these hydroponically grown basil plants at the grocery store. I didn't take this plastic off, but you certainly can. And then just you can keep it alive for months on the windowsill as long as you water it regularly. It does require a good bit of water. Keep it outside in the summer. You can bring it in the winter, and you'll have fresh herbs throughout the season. The other thing you could do for the fresh herbs is you can put oil in with it and freeze it actually in the oil. It's obviously not going to get super solid, but it will get hard enough. And then you're going to, you can pop that infused oil into a recipe that you might be making, like a soup, a stew, whatever, in the winter. And then some storage hacks. So storing dry goods in our pantry in clear containers with labels. So we can use repurposed jars, we can use mason jars, really whatever you have on hand. But I've done like jam jars, sauce jars, whatever. But it can just be a nice way to kind of like see your dried beans or grains. Sometimes it just stores a little bit nicer than a bunch of bags in the pantry. So I just always have some like different sizes of like the mason jars or repurposed jars. And then some hacks with like some of the tools that we already have at home. So our fork, lots of things that the fork can do. So I want to show you, I have my herbs here. So we don't need a fancy herb stripper. We can just put the fork and have it in the herb. And then we're just going to peel off. It works a little bit better with a little bit of a thinner herb, but we can get the leaves off pretty easily with that. So we took it right off the stem. So you can do that with any types of herbs that you're looking to strip off of the stem. We can also use it as a citrus juicer, and we'll look at that when we go to use citrus in our recipes. And I thought that this was super cool. Let me show you this one. So this one is you're going to just wrap something around the bottom, and then like right in the middle, and then you squeeze the tongs and you kind of can pick stuff up with your forks. So I thought that was fun. So mason jars, like I just showed you mason jars with my herbs. We're going to actually do overnight oats, not overnight oats. We're going to do a smoothie with our mason jar today. I'm going to show you how to do that on the old, like an old-fashioned type of a blender. We can also make salads in these. So we can layer, just kind of like layer anything like nuts and seeds at the bottom. Then we can put a layer of like heartier, like a thicker vegetable, maybe like cut cucumber or carrots or something like that. And then at the top, we're going to put our leafy greens. It's a little bit better to use the wide mouth ones. This is one of the regular mouth ones, just because it's hard to kind of get your fork in and out when you have one like this. I've also done where I've dropped in, let me grab this real quick. I have an empty applesauce container. I know this one's full. And the wide mouth. Yeah. So what you can basically do is we're going to flip our lid upside down. Actually, now we're going to do, I forgot how I did this. I think it's like this. You might put like small crackers or croutons or something in this empty applesauce container. Or say you have hummus and you put crackers in it, and then it just screws on just like that. So you have your whatever dry goods like that, maybe even nuts or something, and it's screwed right in, so it's all one piece. So I think that that's kind of fun. And then we can always do things like DIY spice mixes. So if you're one that uses maybe like a taco mix or, some type of other seasoning mix that you're buying frequently, you can always make your own and you can always adjust and like add less sodium or, maybe like a certain flavor profile. So you're adding your own and then you have your little spice mixes. It also makes a really nice gift for people if you have like a specialty spice mix that you make. um, and then you might find that if you're doing that, you can buy the spices in bulk from certain places, like the big, like a BJ's or a Costco or like a restaurant store. And then sometimes kind of like the smaller, different types of markets have kind of like bulk spices that are cheaper than, the regular name brand ones. Great. I'm going to stop sharing. Okay, perfect. Okay. So I think the first thing we'll do today is we're going to make our smoothie. So what we're going to do is put everything in the mason jar that we want to mix up. Get my smoothie instructions. So for this, it's our red smoothie. I know last class we made like an orange smoothie. And I know we've made a green smoothie. So we're just hitting all the colors of the rainbow with our smoothie. So we're going to do a half cup of frozen cherries. Pitted. I was thinking of using fresh, and then I'm like, I didn't, the pitting process is not fun with cherries. So frozen is good. You know what I forgot to do? I am going to actually get my beet. I want to soften it a little bit in the microwave before I throw it in. And actually, unfortunately, it's not. Let's actually do that and let it cool, and we'll try out another recipe real quick. I forgot to get it in and then let it cool. So I'm just gonna peel my beet. This came from the CSA that I'm a member of, and it's not the dark red I was hoping it would be, but that's okay. It'll still be really tasty. It's just I don't have a high enough powered blender that it's going to break up properly for me. All right, so I'm just gonna put that in for about 3 minutes. That should give it enough time to soften. Okay. I'm gonna set this off to the side for now. And let's get started on our pesto. So there's so many different ways to make pesto. And this one is going to be basil and walnuts. You know, a lot of times we'll see recipes for pesto with pine nuts, and pine nuts are pretty expensive. So there's plenty of other nuts and seeds that do the trick that are cheaper. So for this, I'm just gonna kind of rip off the leaves. We're gonna do two kind of cups of loosely packed basil leaves. Trying not to take the whole plant. I leave a little bit behind. I have another one back here that I can pull from too. I don't know if sometimes you guys are growing basil outdoors, or if you have any friends or family that do, but it's a nice thing to get a lot of. Pesto is a good thing to do with it if you end up coming across a lot of basil. I also make a recipe sometimes with sun-dried tomatoes and almonds, and that's really tasty too. So many different ways to really play around with the pesto recipe. Okay. All right, so we got our basil in here. Now we're going to do a third cup of walnuts. And I don't know if you have a BJ's near you, but their walnuts are the cheapest as far as I can tell. I don't know about Costco. I've never been to a Costco. But they're only like this whole bag is $5.99 at BJ's. You go through a lot of walnuts. All right. We did our walnuts. Now we're gonna pop in. I'm gonna grab my beet out real quick. Let this cool. Actually, I think I'm gonna throw it in the fridge to let it cool a little bit more quickly. If you have a Vitamix or something, you don't need to take that step because those things are much more high powered than this thing I'm using. All right, so we're gonna do 2 tablespoons of olive oil. Now, I do pull back a little bit on the olive oil in my pesto, but I still use some because really it's not, pesto is something that I feel like is better with olive oil. For sure. All right. And then we're just gonna use 2 tablespoons of water. We're gonna use 2 tablespoons of fresh lemon juice. This is actually where the fork and the lemon juicing can come in. I'm just gonna show you how we're gonna do that. So we're gonna stick the fork in the middle and we're just gonna kind of work it around the fork. And this works well for me since my official lemon juicer broke a couple months ago. I haven't replaced it. Do two tablespoons of lemon juice. We'll keep the seeds out. Leaking. About a tablespoon. Okay. Right, and then we're gonna do our garlic. So we're just gonna do a clove. If you like garlic, a lot, you can always do more. To me, I always struggle with fresh garlic. It's pretty strong for me. So I tend to pull back a little bit if I know I'm not cooking a recipe. Just a little, just enough to be able to taste it. And then we're gonna do just 1/8 of a teaspoon of salt. Yeah, if you find, if you come across any pesto recipes you want to try, just remember we can always like cut the oil in half. We can always cut down on the salt that it's calling for. We can always kind of make our own little alterations. And I did, when I cut the oil, you would maybe normally use a quarter cup of some type of liquid. I put in 2 tablespoons of water to kind of make up for the fact that I wasn't doing more like that quarter cup of olive oil. I'm going to mute myself so you don't have to hear. There we go. Nice. Oops, that was loud. So we kind of just see like that nice green color. It's a little thick, or it's a little loose, I would say, but it's super tasty. Okay. Right. So we did our pesto. Now let's make this chickpea salad. This is super tasty. So we're gonna do I'm gonna cut our avocado. Actually, let's cut the other things first, so that doesn't go brown before we get to it. So this recipe, you can use this as like a replacement for a tuna salad. It's really tasty on like, if you were thinking of doing like an avocado toast, this is a really nice thing to do because you do still have the avocado, but you're getting in also a lot of other things like some protein from the chickpeas and your different veggies and things. So this is a really nice option. I was eating it for breakfast when I was playing around with the recipe. It was just really tasty and very fresh for this time of year. And there seemed to be enough in it that the avocado wasn't turning brown on me, which was good. That's never fun when that starts to happen. So I'm cutting the pieces pretty small. I don't want huge chunks in this. I'm going to do a half cup of red pepper. And actually, what I'm going to do first is get these chickpeas mashed before I put the red pepper in. It's kind of hard to mash them with other stuff in there. I'm going to rinse and drain them. I'm just going to mash these up. It's easy to find the low sodium chickpeas at the store. You can also, obviously just get regular if you can't, but you can also, make them yourself if you want to. And what I like to do if I do make dried beans, I will kind of like store them in one can portions in the freezer if I make a big batch. So oftentimes if you're making a bag, you're gonna make more than you need. So that's a nice way to kind of, have an easy grab and go bean to make, throw that portion into your recipes that you're looking at making. So usually about 2 cup portions, basically. Okay. We have our pepper cut up. Let's do our onion real quick. I'm gonna do 1/4 cup of onions. Again, small, finely chopped. Perfect. All right, so let's do our avocado. I think we've talked a little bit about avocados before, how we want to pick, if we're picking ones that aren't ripe, we leave them on the counter till they get ripe. And what you want is just like a little bit of give. You don't want your finger to sink all the way in, just a little bit of give. And if you're not going to use them, if they have that little bit of give for a while and they're on the counter, you can throw them in the fridge and they'll hold in that state for a couple days, which is nice. So I just cut around the pit and then I do a little turn and then very carefully I take out the pit with my knife. I did have somebody that was telling me that their daughter like went to take out the pit and like sliced her hand. So I'm always very careful about my pit removal. And then I just, for like this, I'm just gonna peel the outside off. I like to do that versus scooping sometimes if it's nice and ripe and if it's for, you know, it's just what I tend to do versus scoop it out, but you can do either. Sometimes there's a little bit of like that dark brownish red, so I just peel it, like just kind of scrape it off a little bit. All right. Perfect. So now we're going to just kind of mash that all together. The avocado is nice and soft, so it's easy to mash that, which is great. This is such a nice recipe. Got your healthy fat, your protein, some veggies, some vitamin C from your peppers and lime juice that's going to go in it. Just a really nice combo. You could throw this in a wrap. Like I said, on instead of avocado toast, you can have this on toast. Eat it by itself. Great. Now I'm going to stir in my peppers, my onion. We're going to do our lime juice. I don't know what they've done to limes, but I feel like I never have to deal with seeds in them. They must have done something lately with limes. All right, so I'm going to do my trick with my fork again. It's amazing how much more juice this gets out of these fruits than just me squeezing them. Kind of similar to like one of those, I don't know if you've ever been to a Mexican restaurant where they do the table side guacamole. It's kind of a similar, but with the chickpeas thrown in. All right, so we have our lime juice. Now we're just going to do another just 1/8 teaspoon of salt in here. Just doing a tiny bit of salt because it's really all it needs because it's so flavorful with everything else that's in it. And then we're gonna do just a dash of pepper. Can't find my cracking one, so let's use a little bit of this. So yummy. And we're just gonna mix it up. And if you want a little bit of heat in it, you can always mix in some jalapeno. That would be really tasty. And this would actually be a really good dip with tortilla chips too, now that I'm just kind of looking at it again from a fresh lens. Little corn, you can just throw all kinds of stuff in here. Awesome. So yummy. All right, so I think that beet has cooled off. So let's grab that out of the fridge and you can finish our recipe for our smoothie. Throw my beet in here. And then we're gonna throw in a half cup of strawberries. And you can use frozen or fresh. I just have because they're in season right now. Now we're going to do our hemp hearts. I don't know if we've talked about hemp hearts before, but they're the inside of a hemp seed. They're a good source of omega-3 fatty acids from plant foods. So we have like walnuts are a good source from plant foods, hemp hearts, and brown flaxseed. What I like about them is that they do break down very nicely. They're kind of almost like soft. So I find that they go well in a salad. They go well on top of soup and in smoothies. They don't have as much fiber as some of the other seeds do. So only 1 gram and 3 tablespoons, but we're getting a lot of fiber elsewhere in the smoothie. There is a good bit of protein. So if you did 3 tablespoons, you'd get 10 grams of protein. So it's a nice way to get some protein in, especially if you're maybe like not able to chew as well or different things like that. It's a good protein source, but I'm only using 1 tablespoon today. You can put on yogurt too. It's nice with that, like a little granola and some parts. And then we're gonna do 10 ounces of our unsweetened soy milk, but you could use regular milk, you could use almond milk. I was thinking too of playing around with this and just maybe doing like water and Greek yogurt, but I didn't get a chance to trial that. But I think that that would work out well. Will work out well too. And I typically do 10 ounces because sometimes it's just not enough liquid, but we might actually in this only need 8 ounces. So let's just see. Sometimes if you're having like a lot of like frozen banana in it and things, you need a little bit more liquid. Actually, I think just a cup will do for this. All right, now we're gonna do our blender trick. So I have just this old, like this one I just used for the recipe we just did. The other thing you could throw in here is a date. So just keep that in mind. If you want it a little bit sweeter, you could throw a date in, or even like a teaspoon of honey. So what we're doing is we're gonna put our blade inside of our mason jar. We're gonna screw this on. Now this only kind of works with blenders that have like a lid, base like this. My usual, what do I have? The NutriBullet, it doesn't work, but for this one it does. Let's just get that on. Hey, it's a little more purple, but it is our red smoothie. And then I'm going to show you, I think I maybe showed you this in the other class, but the Parmesan cheese lids, in case you weren't here, they're super perfect smoothie lid. So we screw this on. We can pop our reusable straw right in here. Smoothie served. All right. Does anybody have any questions?